Hello, everybody. Welcome to your very favorite Spider-Man podcast. Here comes the Spider-Cast. I am your co-host, Mike Gall. As always, I'm joined by
Joshua Mervell, and today we're going to be taking a look at some episodes of the 1994 Spider-Man cartoon featuring the first appearance of the Hobgoblin.
That's right, and this is a favorite series of one Bex Luthor, and Bex Luthor's joining us this week. Thank you, Beck.
Hey, yo, what up? It's me, your boy.
And we also have a very special guest who demanded to be on this episode, Bob Myers. Thanks for joining us, Bob.
Well, hello, and thank you. I'm not sure, I don't know demanded is quite accurate, but...
I think you hinted that you might be interested, and then I forced you to come on.
Basically, the background real quick is, like a month ago, you guys were reading spin-offs where you were on the X-Men books, and you were literally like, I was reading through the X-Men books, and I was like an issue or two before what you guys were going to read when you said you were going to read it. So I messaged you and said, hey, I'd like to be on that show. And you're like, we recorded it last week. I was like, oh,
yes. Okay. That was the X-Men one with where the city gets
turned, where they go back into like medieval time in New York City.
Right.
And it's terrible.
Yeah, it's one of the worst ones.
Oh, man. I still don't know what happened in that comic.
So, no one does.
So, yeah, I kind of lucked out not being on that show.
Yeah. So how far are you in your reread of X-Men then?
So I've stopped now, but I got through basically the Mutant Massacre.
Okay.
And I was reading X-Men and New Mutants and then X Factor, and then it just became too much. I'm like, I need a break. So after Mutant Massacre and a little bit more, I decided, okay, I'm just going to stop now.
There's definitely a kind of a lull for like a year or so, but then it picks up again when Jim Lee and Whilce Portacio kind of take over, like in a year or two after that. So
yeah, I may pick it up again, but I needed a break for a while.
Gotcha. So now what about Spider-Man? What's your experience with Spider-Man, like growing up or whatever? Were you a big fan?
Actually, it's interesting. I was thinking about it, and I don't think I've ever actually read a Spider-Man titled comic before.
Wow.
I like Spider-Man, and I've read a ton of Spider-Man stuff in crossovers, but I don't know that I've ever actually read a Spider-Man comic book.
Interesting.
Weirdly enough.
Well, we'll definitely have to have...
could just get me kicked off the especially now it's gone silent.
No, trust me. G.I. Jolie had never read a Spider-Man comic. I know Becca has, but not as much.
I can't hear you.
Not any 80s comics, right, Becca?
It was mostly 90s stuff. It was when I got into Spider-Man, yeah. But also, I don't know anything about anything, so don't worry about it.
That's the thing, is a lot of people, like when I offer for them to be guests on a show, they're like, well, I can't be on the show. I don't know anything about Spider-Man. I'm like, have you listened to our show? Like, we don't know what we're... Yeah, well, first of all, no one does, but we don't know what we're talking about here anyway. So, now, okay, what about the Spider-Man cartoon from the 90s? Did you catch that when you were a kid or anything?
Yeah, I didn't watch it as much as I watched like the X-Men cartoon, but I definitely watched it. I don't have any specific memories, but I know after like watching these couple episodes, I'm like, I definitely watched this show.
Sure. So here's the thing is, there's three big reasons with it I wanted to do this podcast. Number one is Peter David. Number one is Spider-Man. Number two is Peter David. Number three is Hobgoblin. I love the Hobgoblin. When I was a kid, I had a handwritten checklist of every Hobgoblin appearance and, who wrote it and who drew it and blah, blah, blah. So I love the Hobgoblin. So obviously this Hobgoblin in the cartoon is a little bit different, which we're going to talk about later. But, I've been waiting for this episode a long time, and finally we're here and we're going to do it. And who would like to summarize part one of the Hobgoblin saga in the cartoon? Josh and Becca, do you want to tag team it?
Yeah, I feel like we can handle this.
Okay.
Between the two of us who just both watched it maybe 45 minutes ago, we'll remember what happened, right?
Okay,
right.
Sure.
Right. So we start off with Peter wanting to move out, and he kind of has an opportunity to do so with Harry Osborn. And at this point, Harry and Peter are going to school together, but they're not like super close friends. Harry's a little bit more popular than he is, and like hangs out with Flash and like the jocks, and he's kind of more of a party dude, where Peter isn't. Yeah. But because Norman Osborn, Harry's dad, offers to pay for the entire apartment, Peter agrees to move in with him, and all while this is going on, we learned that Norman has hired the Hobgoblin to kill the Kingpin. And we first see this during this like unveiling of a building that they're going to be starting, right?
The Fisk School of Criminology.
Right, which is
I know that because I was
fantastic,
like, funny.
Delicious. So he tries to assassinate him there, but Peter's Spidey senses kick in, and he's able to push Kingpin out of the way before anything happens. And this is when Spider-Man first meets the Hobgoblin. And then this is where things kind of get a little bit fuzzy for me. So Hobgoblin gets away, and he goes back to Norman, and they kind of have a little bit of a fight. So what Hobgoblin does is he decides to screw over Norman Osborn and double cross him and go to Kingpin and be like, hey, listen, don't you want to know who hired me? Let's take this guy out together. So they team up. He tells him that Norman is the one that tried to, who put a hit on him. And they kind of team up and decide to screw over Norman Osborn by stealing his son, Harry.
Right out of his apartment.
Right out of his apartment, which...
and Aunt May just happens to also be there.
Right. Aunt May is visiting right when Hobgoblin happens to show up and throws a pumpkin bomb, and which puts Aunt May into the hospital. So Peter is now at the hospital with his Aunt May, who is in a coma, and also dealing with the fact that his new best friend has just been kidnapped by Norman Osborn or by the Hobgoblin, and he's now got to suit up as Spider-Man to figure out what the hell is going on. And then a couple of times Hobgoblin double crosses Kingpin and then goes back to Norman and then goes back to Kingpin again. It's it gets a little ridiculous, but
and then episode 1 just ends.
Right. Yeah, it's I can't even remember what the cliffhanger is. Hobgoblin is laughing about something.
Right.
Yeah, Mark Hamill is doing his delicious laughter.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and then the episode's over, and then I binge watched the next episode immediately after, obviously, and the first 5 minutes are just the Hobgoblin Part 1 recapped,
right.
Exactly, just the dialogue. Anything that's not dialogue is taken out of the episode.
Yeah.
And that's the recap, so it's I didn't even need to watch it. Cool. The cliffhanger is that Peter goes into an abandoned building to get away from the Hobgoblin, and he throws pumpkin bombs into the building, right? Because the second episode starts with the building exploding.
Right.
Right. So Kingpin, it's probably a good thing to mention too. Kingpin is working in this TV show, and throughout this entire TV show, is working with Alistair Smythe.
Yeah.
And Alistair Smythe finds out that Hobgoblin is double crossing the Kingpin now and going back to Norman. So he tells Kingpin, and he tries to kind of he confronts Hobgoblin in his office, and really Hobgoblin is only in it for money and power, and he just wants to kind of take over for the Kingpin and be the new Kingpin. So
and he keeps going back and forth between Osborn and the Kingpin, who trust him every time.
That's what's ridiculous. I don't think it's the Hobgoblin flip-flopping. It's that Norman's okay, I trust you this time. It's so
the third time. Don't worry, this time me and you, Gabo.
He's just so charming. How could you not?
Right.
Every time they have a conversation with this guy, he's he's on the glider. He's flying around. He's never just standing and they're talking. He's always flying around these people, and I thought that was great.
Right.
Except for when he's in Kingpin's chair, I don't think he's ever not standing on the glider.
That's true.
Good point. Yep.
So yeah, that kind of leads us into what's happening. There's some sort of fight, and Hobgoblin uses some new tech that he blackmails Norman into giving him
from the third double cross.
Right. So he's able to take on the Kingpin now because he's able to surprise him with new tech that the Kingpin didn't know about. So Kingpin
Which
and
is just
Alistair,
a bigger glider.
big glider, yeah, and bomb tray, smart bombs,
Smart bombs.
Pumpkin bombs. Yeah.
Yeah,
Smart
and
bombs.
more saw blades.
right.
I like the saw blades.
I thought it was really nice of Osborn to not only have these smart bombs, but have them pumpkin themed for the Hobgoblin.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Good point. Good point. Right.
So Kingpin and Alistair, they leave, and now Hobgoblin is like the new Kingpin. He's kind of taken over the building. So Norman and Kingpin now have to team up and take over Hobgoblin. And what they do is they use Spider-Man and give him details on where the Hobgoblin is hiding so he can go and fight him himself. There's a battle that happens. He saves Harry while the building is kind of exploding and they have to crawl down through the tunnel back out. So Spider-Man never actually realizes what building they're in. So it keeps the Kingpin's identity safe. And Norman is now safe. And there's like one. So like Kingpin and Norman kind of go their own ways and everything is done. Norman and Harry are reunited and Spider-Man is there being like, I saved you this time, but you better watch your back. And then Hobgoblin shows up like one last time to try to kill them. And Spider-Man defeats him by jumping into a smokestack, which makes the Hobgoblin like crash into it and flip into the river, and we don't see him again. And then the episode ends with Aunt May coming out of a coma and Peter deciding not to move in with Harry and to stay with his aunt at her house.
And it turns out that she didn't have a stroke and go into a coma because of the pumpkin bomb. It was because she saw Peter's dirty apartment and she just couldn't believe it. It was just so disgusting. Peter, how do you live like this? I'm gonna have a stroke.
So
my favorite part of... Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Becca. Go ahead, Becca.
I was just going to say, the end part where Harry and Norman, like, come back together is, like, he's like, oh, I did care about Harry. I just was never there for him at his baseball games, when he was sick, when he needed me, real love. And I was like, what the hell? None of this has gotten resolved. Nothing happened.
Well, okay. I can say more later, but I gotta say, of the 13 episodes we've reviewed so far, this is the first one I was a little bit disappointed by. I really thought it was, again, rushed, the way that they jumped into the Hobgoblin at the beginning, like opening up the episode with him just putting on his costume and then flying out. I really didn't like that, especially since the way he was introduced in the comic. He was like such a mysterious figure for like a couple issues, sort of. Then he was introduced. Then he sprung onto the scene, and then we didn't know who he was. So, but I can get more into that later. But I want to know, Bob, what was your impression of this episode? Just going in kind of blind.
I'd say I mostly liked it. I will say I definitely, like you, I have definitely a warm spot in my heart for the Hobgoblin.
Awesome.
And I'm guessing it's probably because as a kid of these episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay.
I think it's because I just like the maniacal villain who's just like, you know what? The Hobgoblin doesn't have to have a reason for backstabbing and then backstabbing again. He just does it. And he's a lot like Starscream in that way, who I also love.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I really enjoyed these episodes. Enjoyed them as much as you can for a 90s kids show.
Ooh. So feelings were hurt, but okay, continue.
Well, I mean, I really liked them. I'd watch more. It did feel weird, like you said, that like the episode just starts with the Hobgoblin there. I'm like, okay, there's no background for who this Hobgoblin is, and there's no information at all. They drop little hints that Norman knows who he is, but there's no information in 2 episodes about who this guy is at all, which I'm kind of okay with, actually.
Well, here's the thing. Whether it's a cartoon or a TV show on CW, it doesn't cost any more money to build a mystery than to not build a mystery. And it drives me crazy when, for example, there's a Snake Eyes movie coming out, which we won't talk about right now, but in the first G.I. Joe movie, which was a piece of crap, the first time Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow meet, they flash back to their entire history in like 3 seconds, and they ruin about 55 issues of the comic. Like, how hard is it to just dole out a little bit of mystery? Just give us something, you know, like just slow it down just a little bit. But they didn't do that. And that's why, like I said, I was a little disappointed.
So I didn't mind this. So I've watched this series many times. And what I kind of like about this is that they didn't reveal his identity yet.
Right.
Just like in the comics, he keeps appearing and like the readers are like, he's just some masked villain. We don't know who he is yet.
Right.
So it's a little like confused. Like, sorry, I was reading chat.
Oh, no problem.
I kind of like that there's still mystery in the show as well. And like, I don't know. Do you want to watch the rest of the Hobgoblin episodes for the show?
Are you asking me or are you asking Bob?
You.
Oh, me. Oh, well, let's be clear. I'm going to watch every episode of this cartoon no matter what. But as far as like, if I had a gun to my head and I could only watch this or, you know, like West Wing, I might pick West Wing only because, like, again, it's a little bit frustrating.
Right.
That.
Sorry, my question was is for the for our show.
Oh.
Because I don't. I also don't want to spoil what's coming up with the Hobgoblin because, spoiler alert, he does return and the mystery of who he is continues
in the cartoon.
Well,
I can't. No, don't get me wrong. I'm super pumped to find out how that plays out. I'm just saying that the way that it was done was a little bit disappointing. I guess we can also. I mean, we haven't heard Becca. You haven't really said much about the actual episode. Like, what do you think about the episode compared to the other episodes that we've reviewed?
Oh, well, I mean, you know, I love this show and everything about it. My favorite part is like the villains and how they interact with Spider-Man and how Spider-Man interacts with all the characters. And just like the when I was a kid watching some of the animation and like going from like traditional to more computer generated was always really cool to me. So, when any of like that kind of stuff happens, I like get a little like flutter in my chest. I'm like, oh yeah, remember when you were so excited about that? Because that was like new and that wasn't a thing.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I like this. I enjoyed it because the whole time I was like watching it by myself, I was like, I wish I had someone here just so I could sass with them about all the things, like Harry Osborn's bad haircut and how it's exactly like his father's.
Oh my God,
right.
I do not understand the hair at all.
No one does.
It's so weird.
The 90s outfits, like
what is it? Yeah, what is that hair supposed to be? Does anyone know?
It's so weird. They're like tight curls, but he also has like a widow's peak bigger than Dracula. It's wild.
Is this like the male? Is this the male version of cornrows? Like, did he just get back from
that's what it kind
Jamaica?
of looks like, right?
And like that's how it looks in the comics too. Like, why does their hair look like that? And it's only Harry and Norman Osborn.
Right. It's very strange.
It's a weird genetic trait that they have. But yeah, just like little things like that, and Harry's relationship to his father, how like absolutely strained and it is, and how ridiculous it is. He goes up to him in the car, he's like, Dad, are you okay? And the guy and Harry or Norman goes, whatever, and like slams the door and drives off, and Harry's like, yeah, I'm fine too, like, thanks, Dad. Like, all that little stuff that I thought was so funny as a kid is still funny.
Right.
The jokes are still good. Peter's still really funny. I think it's in episode 2 when he like hides under the truck and he goes into the sewer. He's like, well, at least I've got the sewer. I'm like, I love that.
To me, this feels like almost exactly a comic book translated to animation. Like, and I don't mean like word for word.
Right, but it's the spirit.
But like the feel. Yeah,
right.
It really does feel like a comic. Like the heavy-handedness too of like Norman just like really not caring about Harry, and then at the end making like the sacrifice jump out of nowhere. You know what I mean? Like,
it's melodrama.
I care for you, son. It's like that, like super like nonchalant a theme for the episode. Like, I don't know, it everything about it, the bright colors, the like over the top acting and characterization of these comics characters, it really does feel like it's these people have read the comics.
Oh, let's be 100%.
Yeah, for sure. And that is definitely more than I can say for a lot of other people that are in charge of adaptations of comic book characters, because a lot of times they really don't feel like they do in the comics.
You know what? Yes. I mean, first of all, there's a million things we could say about that, but I know that the guy who created this, I'm trying to find who it is, John Semper. He basically read every single Spider-Man comic ever made, and then he wrote the show. And so you could consider this like the condensed, reorganized, version of the comics. And obviously, not everything's going to be perfect, but if you want to talk about an adaptation that's a cartoon that's in the 90s with this budget, I really do think he did a good job, definitely, of boiling everything down to the essentials. Now, one thing that I might disagree with you guys about, I was never a huge fan of Mark Hamill doing the Joker. And I also
really?
and I also don't know. I also don't know if I like the idea that the same guy who does the Joker is also doing Hobgoblin. But Bob, I want to know, what do you think about Mark Hamill doing the voice of the Hobgoblin?
I thought he was spectacular as the Hobgoblin. I don't even understand what you're saying, sir.
Yeah, I gotta go. I'm shoveling breadsticks into my purse and I'm leaving this day.
Here's the thing.
You have some outrageous opinions, but this one has gone too far.
Hot take. Yeah. So here's the thing: is that I'm not saying I don't like him as Hobgoblin. I'm just saying that I don't know what. Why does the Hobgoblin sound exactly like the Joker? That's my first question. B, I don't know if he's my first choice. Yes, I agree, he's good, and everybody loves Mark Hamill. He's just not what I imagined the Hobgoblin to be when I was growing up. Because don't forget, I read Hobgoblin comics for 7 years before this cartoon came out, right? That could be why.
Yeah, for me, this is probably, I don't remember because I was fairly young, but I'm pretty sure this was my introduction to Hobgoblin. So for me, this is the Hobgoblin.
Okay, understandable then.
Same with me. So something that's a little interesting is that I thought that the Hobgoblin came before the Green Goblin in the comics as well as a kid.
Right.
I just assumed that was the case because the Hobgoblin is introduced before the Green Goblin in this show. And then when I started reading 80s Spider-Man comics, the Green Goblin was dead. So he was not around. He was not a thing. So it was just the Hobgoblin that I was reading about. And then the Green Goblin showed up later on. So as a kid, as a little kid watching the show, I assumed that the Green Goblin was a knockoff of the Hobgoblin.
Right.
And I actually kind of like it. As weird as it sounds, I think that it's a better story for Norman to be to kind of have him slowly descent into that chaos and madness of the Green Goblin and having that persona take over his whole entire life. If he is still responsible for creating the Hobgoblin in this sense and giving him the powers and everything and making the Hobgoblin who we all recognize him to be, and then eventually you know what, I need to take things into my own hand, and he dons his own version of the Goblin and kind of takes over. And maybe that is just because that was my first introduction to these characters, but I really like that kind of arc.
Well, again, really quick, the creator, he has the benefit of knowing, okay, I've got 65 episodes, I got to plan it all out, and he knows exactly how it's going to end. Whereas with the old comics, Stan Lee and Steve Ditko were just making it up as they went along. And then with Hobgoblin, Roger Stern had his idea of who Hobgoblin was. Then the next writer changed it. Then the right after that changed it again, right? So there's going to be some benefits to having just one guy control everything, for sure. But Becca, you came in to the cartoon first, right?
About the same time as I started reading 90s Spider-Man stuff. It was about around the same time because the show aired in 94, right? I was 2, so I didn't watch it when it originally aired.
So you hadn't all read all the comics yet? Why not?
Well, I was still, figuring some stuff out, who I was. I was working through some things. it was just, it was a me time. The 90s really were. So I started watching it. Like, I think I watched the show first, but I started reading comics as soon as I could read, basically, because anything that I could, as soon as I could read, I was like, I need to read things. Like, I need to let the world know I'm gonna have no friends. Please, just give me reading material. I'm not gonna be able to go outside. I can't do sports.
I hear you that.
So yeah, it was around the same time. Obviously, the show was written for kids, and a lot of 90s Spider-Man not necessarily wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There's some things that are like more childish, but then like I remember Venom just giving me nightmares, and Carnage, and then me still having to read them. Sorry, my headphones just turned off.
No problem.
Yeah, that's good.
We can pick up the slack.
No, I got it.
Oh, okay. Continue.
But yeah, so I started reading them at the same time, and it never really occurred to me who came first.
Right.
Like, in the continuity-wise, I would just be like, oh, this has Spider-Man in it. I want to watch/read that. And then I wasn't until it got a little bit older, and I started figuring out what continuity was, and, obtained object permanence, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Started to matter more.
Okay,
Yeah.
so go ahead, Josh.
It's interesting that you hear just the Joker when you're watching this, because I thought it was really different from the Joker.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
same.
different. You mean you thought he was? You mean you agree with Josh? Not that he sounded the same, right?
Yeah. I thought he sounded differently. I didn't hear the Joker at all.
No, I mean he's a good character actor. He was definitely doing a different voice. It's just that since I knew it was Mark Hamill, I was like, oh, it's Mark Hamill again.
I wonder if you didn't realize when you started watching, like if you didn't know
In the
prior
90s?
to watching.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible.
If you would feel the same.
Totally know what you're saying. Now, here's the thing: is just to throw you guys a bone. Even though I love the Kingpin, I've always thought the Kingpin was too infallible in the comics, like to the point that he was boring to me because he was infallible. I like that in this show, he's at least a little bit more down to earth. Like he's capable of error and he's capable of being double crossed, sort of. Mm-hmm. So even though this voice actor has kind of a vague British accent, which I don't really get because he's the Kingpin in New York, but I really do like the Kingpin in this, and I do. I mean, Smythe, he's everyone's favorite Spider-Man villain, but I
love his whiny personality.
I love his mullet.
Yeah.
Oh man, that flat top mullet was spectacular.
Yeah, he knows how to rock it.
Said no girl ever.
And I had to look it up because he was just so wonderfully Australian. I looked it up who the voice actor was. Have any of you looked up who did the voice of Alistair Smythe?
It's funny because I'm looking up the cast of this episode, and he's not even in
actually.
the episode. He's not even listed, but
That's how much he mattered.
yeah, who was it?
Oh, he matters.
Okay.
Because it's Maxwell Caulfield,
Wait a minute.
who may be better known
From
to some of
Grease
you
2!
from Grease 2.
Come on!
my God.
Get
But
out of
more
here.
importantly, he
What?
played Rex Manning in Empire Records.
Oh man. Okay.
my
Now I'm sold.
Hold on a second. That's our boy?
Yes.
From Grease 2?
Yes.
Me and Mike's favorite musical, and the only reason we're still friends? Because we have so much
Exactly.
not in common?
Oh, that hurts.
No. I'm just saying, you hate all the things that I love.
Oh, okay. I'm just saying.
And I love all the things that Mike hates, but we both love Grease too.
You know what's funny? Just for the record, the president of St. Clair College today, somehow we just sprung on to talking about Grease 1, and she talked. I let her go for about 5 minutes. And I let her warm up to it. Then I was like, okay. But what about Grease? What about Grease 2? And she's like, no, I don't like that movie. Fuck.
No.
All right.
She's right. Well,
No,
we
you
can't be
two are the
friends.
only
We're
people in the world who like Grease 2, I think.
That's
Yeah.
gotta be what it is.
Could be it. Wait,
I've never met
Becca.
anyone else who likes it.
Becca, you also like Kiss.
Yeah,
The
I
band.
also like Kiss.
See?
But I was also a child born of rebel parents from the 90s. Like, yeah, you just kind of like Kiss.
Okay. I thought you were gonna say you were born of you were a child of wankers, but anyway.
That's also true, but
Okay, anyway, look, we've
Not
got
that
off
my
track.
dad listens to the podcast.
Okay, we've got off track here.
Yeah, Dad, are you gonna listen to the thing that I do? You interested in the things that I'm interested in, Dad? He's
Wait.
not.
Wait a minute. He came to see your cosplay competitions.
Yeah, thanks.
In fact, didn't he participate in one of them? Or was that only because
No.
John Fairley forced him to?
No, he hates John Fairley.
Oh,
Oh shit! No, we
wait.
can't say
We
damn it.
can't say
Oh,
that. Hold on. Let me edit that out. Okay.
Shit! I just sold my dad out. Don't worry, neither of them listen to this.
Okay, Josh, take it from here.
So I do actually have some good news. Alistair Smythe does keep the mullet when he turns into Spider Slayer. So
Well, that's good. That's good.
Thank God.
yeah. Yeah. So I wasn't a huge fan of the constant double crossing, and it felt like they just needed like reason. They needed a reason for Hobgoblin to get new tech that Wilson didn't know about.
Right.
So he had to double cross him again to go to Norman, and then double cross Norman. It was just felt like really lazy,
Forced.
I guess. Like, yeah, it would be different if like the Kingpin knew or something. I don't know. It's so weird.
Well, okay, here's the thing is like I said earlier, again, I don't want to nitpick, but this was the first episode where I noticed that I thought the animation was a little bit subpar. I've been a fan of the animation for the first, 10 or 12 episodes, but I actually thought the animation was noticeably weaker in this episode. Was it just my imagination, or did anyone else notice that?
Yeah, I think this one might have been a little bit weaker. And I think it has to do with that.
Okay.
There was a fair amount of like CGI animation that I didn't really like, and I don't know if that's common in the series or not.
Yeah,
it's pretty common, yeah.
Yeah, at the time, 3D animation was like on the rise. In 1994, like the first 3D animated movie hadn't even come out, so this was like pretty new tech and was like high tech and state of the art at the time. So they used it a lot, and I think at times it actually does the animation some favors, and then other times it's like woof, it's like being pushed right out of the show.
Right.
Like I when you can tell that it's a 3D model that Spider-Man is like swinging through the city, it's too much, and it like totally pulls you out of the show. But then at other times, like when Spider-Man is hanging off the spider from the glider, the glider like flies up to a building and then shoots up, and you can see the reflection in the building, and like as they're going up, you can see their like their reflections kind of distort as they like cross the different panes of, or the different like glasses making up the building's wall. Like there were definitely times where it worked and was done well, and then other times it was just like unrendered 3D models that Spider-Man was swinging through.
Right.
So, yeah, it's definitely not a highlight of the show, and also like something that is constantly throughout the series. So
It's pretty common in a lot of 90s animated stuff too.
yeah,
It's because they were like, oh, Aladdin did it, so we have to.
That's what I thought of was Aladdin. I'm like, sometimes this looks good, and sometimes it really jumps out at you as terrible.
right.
And Aladdin was definitely what I thought of when I saw it.
I always think of Hercules because the Hydra looks like completely 3D. It's really off-putting. Where like the mouth, the door, the lion, the giant lion from Aladdin,
Okay.
the sand lion. What's it called?
I don't remember.
The cave of wonders.
The sand lion.
We all know what you're talking about. but yeah.
I thought that it wasn't like awful, the 3D, considering at the time. Yeah, the Hydra in Hercules is so bad.
And like these are two very different budgets. Disney animated versus, well, I guess Disney's 90 animated was still Disney becoming the conglomerate that they are now. But like it was still a different budget between that and like Spider-Man animated series.
Mhm.
Right. But the animation in this series is overall good. Like when we talked about the show, the last couple times, we all noted, for example, I think the animation in this show is better than the X-Men show from the 90s, personally.
Yeah, I think they're both hit or miss. You can tell that. I think we've talked about this before, but it's pretty common around this time to outsource certain episodes to other animation studios or like animation studios overseas that do not speak the language, so the lip sync is off a lot of the times. Like it's hard to do lip sync alone, like in your native tongue. I can't imagine trying to do lip sync for a language I have no idea. So like at times the lip sync isn't great, but I think for what it is, the animation is pretty good. And there are some shots that I think still hold up even in this episode. Like there's some pretty good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I can see some outsourcing because, like, I definitely felt this one was different from the other ones, but I probably have to watch them back to back, I guess. Mm-hmm. But so here's the thing. So Bob, are you excited to watch more? Go back and rewatch more episodes of this cartoon?
I mean, I wouldn't completely rule it out. I did also watch the very first episode of the show.
Oh,
just
cool!
To see how it started. Even though I know this is only episode 11, but I might watch more. I might dig in and see because I love the Kingpin, so I might watch more like Kingpin episodes and see what other villains there are and jump in on some of them. I wouldn't rule it out.
It's a really crazy series. Like they go through a lot of different arcs in the comics.
Yeah, I think up till now it's been mostly like introduction to villains, and sometimes there's a two-parter. But like immediately after this, I think there's an episode about Chameleon, and then right after it, we go into like some crazy Doctor Strange, X-Men, like everybody's here now. Like everybody's here.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Like, how many crossovers are there? So does Doctor Strange, does Daredevil show up in this show?
Yes.
Daredevil does show up.
That's some of the best stuff with Daredevil, actually.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely watch the Daredevil stuff.
Yeah, there's Daredevil. They do Secret Wars. They do the Clone Saga. They do there's so much that happens.
Yeah, the Beyonder shows up.
Ooh, do they do an awful Secret Wars crossover?
Yes.
It's the best Secret Wars interpretation.
Yeah, it's actually not awful.
Well, that's impressive.
Yeah, from what I remember. And then, they do the first kind of like multiverse thing too. And
Madam Web and
multiple Spider-Men showing up, and it's
29.9.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, Bob, I have a question. Are you a fan by any chance of Secret Wars?
I don't think a fan would be the right word.
But you
can stay.
I do have the cover autographed by Jim Shooter and Mike Zeck on my wall downstairs.
Oh, nice.
It's a blown up. It's like a 10-inch by 12-inch or whatever. And it's unfortunately not the original cover. It's the thing they did a few years ago where they're like, oh, we can't have the X-Men in this because we don't own them.
Okay.
But it's still fairly cool because I got to meet Mike Zeck and Jim Shooter and get them to sign it.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, no, I don't like Secret Wars. And I do want to specifically call you out. I think you guys are past it, or I guess commend you guys for letting Mike L force you guys to read Secret Wars 2.
Yeah.
We only read like 2 issues.
That's still too many.
I think
But
I started reading it when I was reading through X-Men, and I was like, no, I can't do this. I know there's important stuff for what happens in the New Mutants and with Rachel Summers, and I couldn't do it.
We have Google
so
now.
Bad.
We don't need to watch.
I'm
we
just
don't need to read everything.
Summaries. Yeah.
Yeah, you just go to the Marvel Wiki. It's like Secret Wars 2.
Yeah.
So
Bob,
I thought it was really nice of you guys to not stop being friends with Mike L because he made you read that.
Well, guess what, Bob? I've got you penciled in.
Now.
May 19th, Bob. I got you penciled in for our review of Secret Wars 2, number 7. All right.
Wait, we're doing more Secret Wars?
Of course. Spidey's in it. We have to. 7, 8, and 9, Becca.
Oh my God.
Becca's left the call.
I don't have any excuses. I don't do anything. Crap. I'm going to be dead. I plan on dying. So I'm not going to make those 2.
Rather
I'll be
than
fine
reading
after
Secret
that.
Wars.
I'll be resurrected after that.
Go fake your own death rather than read Secret Wars. Okay. So I guess we should wrap up this episode. Josh, you can take it from here. Oh, we want to thank Bob for joining us. Thank you so much, Bob. Again.
Well,
we'll remember next time that you're in a different time zone.
Yeah, that was entirely my fault. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Mike knew where you lived, didn't
No,
you?
no.
Oh, he
I
did.
thought you lived in.
Then it is his fault.
Yeah, I thought you lived in Pennsylvania with Mike, Dell, and Larry.
It's my fault because I know where Mike lives. I just assumed that Canada's all in Central Time. It just all seems to me. I don't know. It's in my brain. Canada's all in the Midwest.
It kind of is. I know what you mean. But anyway, definitely thanks for joining us. We'll definitely have you on again, and hopefully next time we'll read some comic books next time. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I'm down for that.
Awesome. All right, Josh.
Yeah, Secret Wars.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm not down for that. Let's not go that far.
Bob's also going to be dead that month.
Yes. All right, Josh, you can take it from here.
All right. We want to thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. It really helps when you leave us a review over on Apple Podcast, or you could drop us a line on Twitter at HCT Spidercast. Please let us know what you guys think about the episodes and the comics or TV shows that we're talking about. We really want to hear from you guys and keep that comics conversation going.
That's right, and join us next week when we have special guest, as long as everything goes according to plan, Andrew Helmer. We're going to be reviewing Amazing Spider-Man number 270, featuring the second part of the Fire Lord saga. Peter Parker number 108, featuring part 2 of the Death of Jean DeWolf. Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 19, featuring Mary Jane as a superhero. We'll find out what that's all about. And Web of Spider-Man number 8, featuring a one-off story about a superhero in a small town. So until next week, Spider Friends, go for it!